That explains why he is equally matched with Jaldabaoth. The question is whether he is friends with the King of Darkness or not. Momon obliterated the vampire and opposed Jaldabaoth. There is a good chance they were the same type of beings but enemies, or maybe they were enemies up to that point. Then they made a deal with the King of Darkness and became friends. It is not clear whether he is against the King of Darkness simply because he vanquished the vampire. He could have been under orders to kill it. Maybe he killed it because it was being controlled by the Supreme Treasure. But why is he hostile to Jaldabaoth? Could Momon be aligned with the King of Darkness, but against Jaldabaoth? So there is the version where Jaldabaoth and the vampire are a team and Momon and the King of Darkness are a team. There is the version where the vampire, Jaldabaoth, Momon, and the King of Darkness are all against one another. There are all kinds of other conceivable combinations. We just don't have enough information. The worst case would be if they were all allies, but that seems unlikely. Momon is too quiet. Normally, if you had that much power, you would be more daring. Yes, like the 8 kings of avarice, or like our gods. Aha. So the reason they aren't doing that is because they are wary of one another, or they could be worried about others. We should assume that since the King of Darkness has actively established a country, there will be others who will move to gain equal fighting power. If Momon said what was true, Honiopnioko has a friend. We should be on the lookout for that one in addition to Jaldabaoth. Overall, we are merely speculating. The only way to know for sure would be to ask Momon or the King of Darkness. That is too dangerous, much too dangerous. First, we should draw information out of the Empire. We should try to get in touch with the Emperor. That would be best. If the Emperor isn't already the King of Darkness' pet, we can avoid a gamble. If we are timid, we'll be too late. But will a small gamble be enough? If we are not lucky, could it be used as an excuse to declare war on us? First, we should casually bring things up with the Emperor to find out his stance. Everyone agreed with those proposals. Then one of them suddenly asked a question. But the people in Rantel revolt against undead rule. They weren't all killed, were they? Or has he established total rule by fear? The question was addressed to Raymond, and he gave an unbelievable answer. According to reports, governance is proceeding peacefully. Uncharacteristic yelps were emitted here and there. It is true that once you reach our age, your ears start to go. Mine seem to have worsened dramatically. I heard you say peacefully, Raymond. Yes, I heard the same. Peacefully with an undead. HMPH, a peaceful undead. I wouldn't be surprised if the sun rose in the north tomorrow. Setting aside jokes for now, if Sir Raymond says that is true, it is difficult to imagine. Are you sure the ones bringing the information aren't morally bankrupt or being sarcastic? The reports say that Death Knights are on guard, Elder Liches run the administration, and Soul Eaters pull carriages to transport cargo. The jaws of everyone besides Raymond dropped. Whoa, wait, what? Say that again? Maximilian's glasses were still tilted as he asked his question. Raymond repeated the news word for word. This time, everyone emitted an uncharacteristic ha. Those were all elite undead, or they should have been. But those knights of the Netherworld were patrolling the streets like useless officials. The masters of the labyrinth were managing distribution, and monsters that could ruin walled castle towns were being used as donkeys. That sort of country was just beyond their borders. What sort of hell is that? In a city where the undead threw their weight around managing municipal affairs, they could only imagine that the humans had been annihilated. No, the people of the former city of Rantel, the subjects of the nation of darkness, are living normal lives. There was a bit of confusion at the beginning, of course, but things are calm now. Perhaps we underestimated the kingdom. Indeed, what mental fortitude. Life-hating undead was stalking right next to me. The thought gave everyone the chills. It was like having a starving beast right there. Any normal person would be terrified. I imagine it is because they believe in the great warrior, the hero-level adventurer Momon of Raven Black, that they can tolerate it. Raymond began to explain what happened the day the city was opened to the King of Darkness. Everyone listened with sober expressions. It does seem like Momon and the King of Darkness might have been on the same side originally. This does seem to be proof that Momon and the King of Darkness are in cahoots. They did both appear around the same time, right? HRRRM. Everyone cradled their heads. Either was possible, but they didn't have confirmation one way or another. Is there some way we could set Momon and the King of Darkness against each other? Maybe using the citizens of Rantel. It is dangerous, much too dangerous. We might end up with both Momon and the King of Darkness standing against us. That's exactly right. We ray suffering many losses at present. The members of the Black Scripture have been resurrected, but we lost the Sunlit Scripture. We lost the crown. The Shrine Princess and Lady Kea died. It will probably take decades to recover. We don't need to risk grilling meat beneath a sleeping dragon's nose. Right, to begin with, we must avoid a two-front war. The hostility in the room ballooned instantaneously. Those grimy traitors, damn elves. The theocracy was at war with the elf country in the woodlands to the south. Originally, the two countries had a cooperative relationship, but since that fell apart, the theocracy had been using all its energy to wage war against the elves. At present, they had succeeded in building a forward base near Crescent Lake, where the elven capital was situated. The plan had been to destroy them within a few years, but it wasn't working. Should we pause the war with the elves for the time being? Don't be stupid. How much blood do you think we've shed so far? And in the first place, we'll never be forgiven if we don't avenge her. That girl, the old man who spoke, winced. She always ended up being treated like a child because of her appearance, though she was actually older than everyone present. What about her? She is standing by in a room nearby as usual. We have to give her a chance to avenge her mother too. Indeed, it would be too pitiful if we didn't once her revenge is complete. Perhaps she'll be calmer too. Everyone in the room wore a sad expression. Honestly, I'd like to give the high priests of that time a piece of my mind. I can believe they raised the poor girl to have a personality like that. Once you say that, let us end it by remembering that it was the fault of those savages in the forest. Even the high priests thought it was a bad idea to take her from her mother. It's a tricky thing, but if we send her, it's possible that the Dragon Lord awakens. I doubt that the power of ruinous beauty would reach one who uses primeval magic, though it reached the catastrophe Dragon Lord. Shall we use it on the King of Darkness? Silence descended on the room. The idea had been on all of their minds, though they didn't say it. It wouldn't be a horrible move. But I am quite concerned, given that we still don't know how powerful his underlings are. If we could charm without limits, there would be no issue. That's disrespectful. How could you complain about the great treasure the gods left? The gods who protect humanity and gave their lives for us. Have you gotten so full of yourself? The reproaches flew, and the old man who had spoken hung his head. It was irreverent of me. Watch what you say. Let us get back to the topic at hand. Am I correct in thinking that we ray all against using ruinous beauty on the King of Darkness? It's too risky. If the catastrophe Dragon Lord appears, we could use it on him and use him as our advance guard. There was no point in wishing for things they couldn't have. Well, we probably have no choice. Regarding the elves, let us send a messenger to that Dragon Lord and try talking. But we have no idea what kind of demands they'll make. Well, let us be flexible and at least listen to what they have to say. It's for the girl's peace of mind. No one objected. They were all in various postures of contemplation. He, someone chuckled, and the rest of the room looked up. He, that is so kind of you, even though everyone who knows what happened at the time is dead. It was a nasty thing to say, but the tone was completely different. We, including her, are a band of friends who protect weak humanity from the other races. I'd like some abuse of authority to be permitted when it's about saving our friends. If no one dies, I won't stop you. The Generalissimo's response evoked a wry smile. Wouldn't it be better to spread this knowledge more widely than word of mouth? Someone with power shouldn't have any trouble unless they go into hiding afterward. Once word gets around, information will come together quickly. The often proposed plan was said to have originated hundreds of years ago, and it was always rejected in the same way. The fewer people who know that our world is a fragile boat hurled into the wide ocean, the better, or that we might get a bad storm every century or so. How would anyone be able to sleep at night? The strong can simply lurk in the shadows forever. They stick out even if they simply go about living their lives. If that is true, then what will that former high priest do? I don't know, but there is a good chance of something happening. Perhaps some kind of ace move is in the works. Maybe the former ninth seat Stormwind distance runner knows something. This is no good. It is happening so near us this time. It is a pain in the extreme. There were several audible sighs. What about asking the retired Black Scripture members for help rebuilding our strength? No, tightening up our watch. As reinforcements to the Dragon Kingdom, if we sent them, there wouldn't be many deaths. The Black Scripture was always leaping into dangerous situations, so the chances of dying were high. But as long as there was a corpse, resurrection was possible. The only issue was that being brought back from the dead used up a lot of life force. Returning to pre-death levels of power required time and training. It was natural that those people would choose to retire. Of course, there were also those who quit when they started feeling their age. In either case, they were given priority for the jobs they were interested in. Some chose not to work and lived a life of debauchery, but in most cases, the gazes of their multiple wives and the "why don't you work, daddy?" from their children compelled them to get back in the game. It was necessary to train those people to get their combat senses back. Some could never hope to return to the level they were at in their prime, but they were still definitely more reliable than some random person. For now, let us tell them what's going on and what we would like. Just don't expect them all to take up their weapons again. Of course not, it would just be an appeal, and for anyone who actually responds, we'll have to offer even better compensation than they wish for. They should get paid as much as we do. Ironic laughter erupted. Their salaries were a joke. In the theocracy, salaries began to decrease above a certain rank. It was a self-purification measure to ensure that the people at the top weren't tainted by greed. The result was that most of those who climbed up that high were there to dedicate themselves to their country and the people. The laughter stopped. The high priest superior spoke. "Very well, everyone. Shall we move on? Raymond, if you please." Chapter 3, The Baharuth Empire. The day Albedo left for the Rey Estes kingdom was sunny. Aints was in the yard of his residence to see her off. There was a line of 5 luxurious carriages. The one Albedo was riding in had her luggage in it. Of the others, one carriage was filled with presents for the king. These gifts were meant to show the power disparity between the kingdom and the nation of darkness. 26 death cavaliers created by Aints surrounded the procession. It would have been simpler to use teleport to travel, but that wasn't the method they chose. Part of Albedo's mission was to show off the might of the nation of darkness. That was why she used monsters instead of horses to pull the carriages. It was a demonstration of their power. "Well then, Lord Aints, I'll be away for a little while. Right, be careful. We haven't found the ones who brainwashed Sholtia. We can rule out the possibility that they might be plotting to mind control you and deal massive damage to Nazarick. Of course, my lord, I'll make sure not to let this leave my person." She cradled a world item. "With that, you should be safe from world item brainwashing. But we don't know for sure that our opponent has a world item. And don't forget that although it is the strongest anti-material world item, it isn't terribly useful against personnel." "Is that true? My main weapon is a portable version of this. It looks different though it is not as powerful as a specialized god-tier weapon. Well, considering that it can be broken and 1 degrade, it is quite strong. But you know what I mean. My point is don't let your guard down just because you race strong." "Not that I think you would make that sort of mistake, Albedo. Come to think of it, Aints had never sent Albedo outside before. He had always stationed her in Nazarick to protect the rear. So Aints was worried in much the same way he would be sending a child on their first errand. Stay wary. Don't let your guard down. If anything seems even the slightest bit dangerous, withdraw at once. Do you have a teleportation item? Some of them take time to activate. Do you have one that allows you to move instantaneously? Some enemies have attacks that prevent teleportation. Have you decided how you'll deal with those? Some enemies will distract you with a decoy and sneak up on you. Don't get tricked by your enemy's strengths. I heard you've been doing some combat training, so you'll be able to handle more, but you still have a lot to learn." And besides that, he wished he had given the same advice to Sholtia before he sent her out. He considered how he would fight her if he was the Pika, speaking rapid fire all the while. How many different attacks had he explained? He realized that Albedo was looking at him awfully happily. Then he came back to his senses with a start. What a terribly embarrassing way to act. Aints cleared his throat. "Let us leave it at that. This is Ray talking about, Albedo, so I am sure you've prepared countermeasures for each of these. I am sorry to have kept you. You can go. Come back safe." "Understood, Lord Aints. I don't mean to ask as Ray leaving, but has Demiurge." "Oh, never mind. Are you sure?" Aints nodded. He really wanted to ask if any word had come from Demiurge. Albedo wasn't against his plan with the Adventurers Guild, so he wanted to ask Demiurge. But he could do that in person when he returned. Albedo seemed curious. Perhaps sensing that he wasn't going to reply, she returned to her usual calm expression. "All right, Lord Aints. I shall do a job worthy of the captain of the Guardians." You always uphold the dignity of your title, Albedo. As soon as he said it, he thought of the times he had been tackled, but this wasn't the time to bring it up. One last thing, I know you have immunity to sickness, but in this world, there might be illnesses that can infect you. Take care of yourself. I heard it's easy to catch colds when the seasons are changing. In the world where Satoru Suzuki lived, there had been 4 clearly defined seasons. He suddenly wondered how Blue Planet would have reacted if he was here. Blue Planet probably would have had the same sparkle in its eyes that Albedo did, setting aside the question of whether it could even make such an expression. With that smile like a flower in full bloom, Albedo made a proposal. Lord Aints, I know a wonderful way to ward off sickness. Oh, he was surprised that she knew a preventive measure specific to this world. Albedo, shouldn't he have had any contact with Enfira the apothecary? Was it knowledge from Yggdrasil or Tabula Smaragdina? His curiosity piqued. Aints waited for her to continue. A kiss, a kiss. Yes, kissing relieves stress and activates the parasympathetic nervous system. If the parasympathetic system is more active, your immunity increases. A kiss will keep you from getting sick. Now that you mention it, I seem to remember hearing something like that before. He remembered someone saying something about the parasympathetic nervous system back when he was playing Yggdrasil. That must have been what he was thinking of, but he couldn't imagine it was valid in this world as well. So a kiss. Albedo closed her eyes and puckered up. It was a fish face. He thought it would be a waste of her beauty, but actually, it didn't detract as much as he expected. Beautiful women are beautiful no matter what kind of face they're making, thought Aints, though it was a bit beside the point at the moment. Aints decided that was enough escapism and began to think. He wanted to tell her no way, but it was clear from a glance that she wanted a kiss. Since he was about to go on a business trip, he wanted to fulfill her wishes to some extent. Ignoring the request of the daughter of Tabula Smaragdina would pain his heart. Aints held Albedo's chin and kissed her forehead. He didn't have any skin, so he didn't have any lips. His kiss consisted of pressing against her with his front teeth, and since he didn't have any spit, either, it should have felt like a dry, hard object touching her. It was just so, and he could only hope she would endure it. He hadn't eaten anything, but he still wished he had brushed his teeth. When he took his hand away from Albedo's chin, his eyes met hers. They were popped wide open. What's the matter? I thought kissing your forehead would be better than the lips, but should I not have? I never thought you would choose me. Before Aints could ask what she meant, round droplets formed at the corners of Albedo's eyes. FYI. She burst into tears. She wasn't faking it, she was actually crying. Aints was so flustered that his mood was forcibly calmed for the first time in a while. He flailed a bit. How would he know what to do? When he made Albedo cry in the treasury, he came up with something comforting to say right away. But he had no idea how to console someone crying from a kiss. What would that stud, the emperor, do, he thought. He hadn't witnessed any scenes like this during his spying. Albedo, please don't cry. He wanted to glance at today's Aints' duty made behind him for help, but this was already a pitiful scene. He didn't want to make himself any more pathetic. Albedo, don't cry. He embraced her and patted her back. After a little while she sniffed. It seemed like she had stopped crying. Relieved, Aints released the hands around her back. Are you all right, Albedo? Yes, Lord Aints. My humble apologies for that shameful display. Though her face was stained with tears, she was wearing a great smile. There could have been only one reason she cried. Realizing what a horrible thing he had done, he felt little stabbing pains in his non-existent stomach. If he hadn't thought, well, the game is almost over, he never would have made her cry like this. Okay, well, it must be about that time. If there isn't anything else, you should get going. Understood, Lord Momonga. The curtains in the window of the carriage opened. He could see Albedo waving. Aints waved back. It was like a scene he'd seen on TV of people parting as a train pulled away. The carriage slowly began to move, and the escorts followed. After watching the carriage until he couldn't see it anymore, he spoke solemnly. Forget all that just happened. Understood. Aints walked past the maid as she bowed. He couldn't see what her expression was. The fresh-blood emperor, Jerkniv Rune Farlord El Nix, was at his wit's end, not for the past couple of days, but all the time lately. This was the man who had never gotten confused or panicked, no matter what nobles he purged, what empire-destabilizing plot of rebellion he heard of, or how bad relations with neighboring countries got. But faced with this unsolvable problem, he could only hold his head in his hands. You bastard. drop dead, die and rot. It was possible to kill an opponent with a curse, but Jerkniv didn't have that power.